My name is Ken Knuckles, and I'm president of the Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone Development Corporation and a member of the New York City Regional Economic Development Council's Executive Committee. On behalf of the New York City Regional Economic Development Council, we'd like to welcome all of you to New York City, and more specifically, the New York Genome Center, which we will tour a little later this morning. We also want to extend our appreciation to each member of the Strategic Implementation Assessment Team, which I'll call SIAT hereafter, for the opportunity to show the Council's progress over the last 4 years through both virtual and in-person tours of our many priority projects. Joining me today are 3 members of the Council's Executive Committee. To my left, Carol Consolado, past President and Counsel for the Queens Chamber of Commerce. Stuart Applebaum, President of the Retail, Wholesale, and Department Store Union and Executive Vice President of the United Food and Commercial Workers International Union. That's a mouthful, Stuart. And Steve Hendy, Founder and Chairman of the Board of Brooklyn Brewery. Thank you, Mr. Secretary.
Well, we are delighted to be here. The REDC has done a fantastic job here in New York, identifying projects that we are investing in, we at the state government. Given that we're talking about state government dollars, I do want to recognize the chair of the Ways and Means Committee of our esteemed Assembly, Mr. Denny Farrell. Yay. Thank you for joining us. Obviously, it's important that the Assembly know that we are spending the money well. The way this process works is that the REDC in each region, the Development Council in each region, presents a plan. They presented a plan 5 years ago, described as a strategic plan. And we have watched them implement that plan. We wanted an opportunity to come out and actually feel and touch and see the progress that's been made over the last 4 years. I want to make it clear that this has nothing to do with the up-and-coming competition for the 5th year, but I thought it was appropriate that all of us here at the SIAT, I'm about to introduce them, who have been involved in weighing the various plans throughout the regions, to come in and see what's going on. So we're very excited to be here. I know you're going to put your best foot forward, and we're very, very pleased that we've been joined by other folks from New York City who understand the importance of the state investing in economic development as well as the city. Let me begin by introducing the members of the SIAT team, which is the State Implementation Assessment Team. We've got at my immediate right, Commissioner Roanne DeStito, who is the Commissioner of the Office of General Services and a former member of the Assembly. Next to her is Commissioner Jerry Boone, who is the Commissioner of the Department of Taxation and Finance. Next to him is Richard Tobey, who has recently been put on the State Implementation Assessment Team. He is a former deputy county executive of Erie County, and someone who's been very much involved in economic development in Buffalo and the upstate region. So with that introduction, there's nobody else?
Nope.
Nobody else here. We've got a missing member, who is Matt Driscoll of the Department of Transportation. But we look forward to the presentation and to be able to perhaps ask a few questions after we've heard and seen it all. Thank you.
Thank you, Cesar. We'd also like to thank the governor and the SIAT team and New York State for its support over the 4 past rounds of the REDC initiative. The Council continues to leverage the region's assets through collective action on the part of business, labor, government, and nonprofit institutions. We also envision a major new commitment to coordinate economic development with investments in housing, infrastructure, and community facilities. The Council is also focused on identifying and accelerating projects that ensure that economically distressed communities and populations have greater opportunities to participate in the fast-growing sectors of the economy, as well as access to good jobs with upward mobility. I'm happy to report that over the 4 rounds of the REDC initiative, the $236 million in awarded state funding for 231 projects across the New York City region has resulted in over 20,000 retained or created permanent jobs. This state funding has also leveraged more than $2.6 billion in total investment. That's a ratio of total project value to New York State investment of 11-1. In addition, 85% of these awarded projects are either complete or on schedule. Only 5% have revised project schedules and are progressing more slowly than originally anticipated, while just 4% are working toward getting funding awarded and contracts signed. A relatively small number of our total number of projects have been terminated, just 6%. As in past years, the New York City Regional Council will again prioritize public and private investment in communities that we call opportunity zones. These are 15 communities across the 5 boroughs with completed rezoning plans and major public and private investments that are poised for significant economic growth in the coming years. In rounds 1 through 4, 75% of our priority projects were located in these opportunity zones. We focused on these communities in order to accelerate the momentum of community revitalization and job creation through the concentration of resources. In some ways, even more important than direct investment, over the last 4 years, the REDC has helped galvanize economic development efforts in New York City by providing an overall strategy that has broken down silos and brought together organizations from academia, business, labor, nonprofits, economic development, and government into ongoing conversations that previously would not have occurred. Stuart?
Good morning, everybody. I'm Stuart Applebaum, and I want to tell you how good it is to see all of you here today. We in the New York City Regional Economic Development Council are really quite proud of the work that has been accomplished here, and we're delighted to have an opportunity to talk about it. Over the last 4 rounds, the Council has convened targeted, ongoing work groups with an emphasis on engaging various groups citywide. Workforce development and veterans have received special focus as we're seeking better projects than in the past. In the last round, we worked interregionally with the Mid-Hudson and Long Island regions on Global New York. In fact, the Brooklyn Brewery project, which you'll hear about shortly, was considering both New York City and the Mid-Hudson regions before finally deciding on New York City. The Council maintains a high emphasis on a 5-borough, citywide public engagement process, as all of our public meetings and forums are videotaped and posted on the web. In addition, we've held CFA workshops and information sessions across the city. Over the next year, the New York City REDC will continue to act as an intermediary, creating opportunities for collaboration across the city. The projects you'll hear about and see today will demonstrate the Council's focus on identifying and accelerating projects that ensure that economically distressed communities and populations across New York City have greater opportunities to participate in the fast-growing sectors of the economy, as well as access to good jobs with upward mobility. You will also learn about projects that foster collaboration with other regions and promote the governor's Global New York agenda. In a few moments, we will begin our virtual tour of 3 priority projects. So sit back, eat your virtual popcorn, drink your virtual drinks, and tour our projects in Queens and Staten Island. But first, we want to touch briefly on the Council's work in 2015 and the REDC Round 5 agenda. We continue to focus on implementing the Governor's Opportunity Agenda through a 5-borough workforce development strategy focused on upward mobility. For 2015, the Council has worked hard to increase awareness of REDC funding opportunities among workforce development groups that work with distressed populations through targeted presentations and one-on-one meetings. Later this afternoon, we will tour a project in the South Bronx, the Urban Development Center, involving a partnership of Perscolis and an IT firm, Doran Jones, which was the centerpiece of our Council's 2014 proposal. This project has become a transformative model for workplace development nationwide. As part of the Global New York Initiative, the Council continues to work with Long Island and the Mid-Hudson REDCs through ongoing workgroup discussions to implement an interregional exports plan and to collaborate on multi-regional foreign direct investment projects as part of Global New York. The Council has also increased awareness of REDC funding opportunities among veterans groups. In particular, the REDC has acted as a convener and connector among these veterans groups, which we expect will result in stronger CFA applications in Round 5.
Thanks, Stuart. For the 2015 Regional Economic Cluster Program, the NYC REDC has selected the Smart Cities Technology Cluster. A smart city is a good idea, right? Uses digital and information communication technologies to enhance the quality and performance of its services, to reduce cost and resource consumption, and to engage more effectively and actively with its citizens. For example, the Smart Cities Technology Cluster Strategy will be looking at ways that emerging technology can interact with our transportation system to provide more information to riders. We are also exploring specific projects that will get tech into the hands of lower-income New Yorkers. And the Perscolis project that we're going to see this afternoon is an example of that. Also, you've noticed on the subways those Wayfinder machines that you can interact with now to learn more about the operation of the transit system. Also an example of getting technology into the hands of lower-income people. In addition, many smart city applications have local manufacturing and communication facilities to support Wi-Fi links across the city. It is estimated that smart city technologies hold a combined market potential of $1.5 trillion globally. The strategy will draw on input from a number of New York global companies, many located upstate, which are leaders in developing tools for smart cities. These companies range from IBM, GE, and Xerox to McGraw-Hill, Deloitte, Pricewaterhouse, Accenture, and Google. That is an area where New York City and state have a distinctive competitive advantage, which could lead in development and deployment of these technologies globally.
Good morning. So as at the last part of the SIAT tour, you toured a number of the REDC priority projects in the Brooklyn Navy Yard. So for this year, the virtual and in-person tours will focus on 5 projects in the other 4 boroughs. The virtual tours, which you'll hear in a few minutes, include the following. Shapeways, a Dutch-founded global 3D printing company, now headquartered in New York City, has built a major manufacturing facility in Long Island City and has created 50 new manufacturing jobs. The company's 2012 move to 25,000 square foot Long Island City space was assisted by $200,000 in ESD Excelsior Job Program tax credits in round one. New York Wheel, the 625-foot high observation wheel on the North Shore of Staten Island, was designated by the council as a priority project in round three. The $500 million project received a $1.55 million grant in ESD Market New York Grant Assistance in round four. The New York Wheel will offer a 38-minute ride and views of the Statue of Liberty, the Manhattan skyline, the Verrazano Bridge, and other points of interest. The project is expected to result in 600 new jobs. Brooklyn Brewery, which has grown into a global brand, will construct at a cost of $120 million a state-of-the-art 500,000 expandable square foot building to a 1 million barrel brewery in a 440,000 square foot building on 25 acres on the west shore of Staten Island with proximity to New Jersey and New York ports. The project received $200 million in ESD capital grants and $400 million in ESD...
No, 2 and 4, Carol.
$200 million in ESD capital grants and $400 million, I'm sorry.
No,
2
2 and 4. We'd like 200.
I must have an old version. Forgive me. The project will result in 82 retained jobs and 115 new jobs. The in-person tours include the following 2 projects. The New York Genome Center, which is our host, is an independent nonprofit organization in the forefront of transforming biomedical research and clinical care with the mission of saving lives. The $158 million project was recently completed and will result in 500 new jobs. The project received a $1.5 million ESD capital grant in round 2 and later received a $55.7 million special appropriation grant, which is being underwritten with approximately $105 million in grants in a partnership between New York Genome Center and the University of Buffalo Center for Computation Research. The Urban Development Center brings together Perscalis expertise as information technology training provider and Doran Jones expertise as a software testing center. The project was awarded a $500,000 ESD grant, a $200,000 Department of State grant, a $100,000 Department of Labor grant, and a $1 million in Excelsior Job Program tax credits. Phase 1 of the project just completed, and Phase 2, to begin soon, will result in 450 new jobs.
Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Stuart and Steve. Over the past 4 years, the Regional Council Initiative has been a productive and comprehensive forum in which academia, business, labor, government, and nonprofit institutions have been able to build broad consensus around the strategies and priorities and values that will make our city stronger, more vibrant, and more inclusive. We have embraced the innovation economy while also seeking that economically distressed communities have opportunities to fully participate in it. Our focus on key projects that will spur job creation and economic development has included serious attention to advancing the Governor's Global New York Initiative, implementing the Opportunity Agenda through workforce development, fostering interregional collaboration, promoting sustainability, and creating new economic development opportunities for low-income communities and certainly veterans. Our 5-borough strategy not only strengthens the city as a global center, but also maximizes the benefits of economic growth for the entire state and all New Yorkers. we will take questions.
Yeah, well, I don't know that I have questions even before you make the presentation, but I think both for the audience and for the members of the CIOT team, when you describe each of the projects, will you let us know how it was that our state investment made a difference and made it happen? Lots of folks don't understand that we in the state government have created this situation, this competition, at the behest of the governor. It was the governor's idea to have each of the regions compete and come forward with projects that, A, would create more jobs, economic development, and but he wanted to invest in things that would not happen without the investment of the state. So unless some of the other members
I'd like to see the, and then.
Yeah, I think all of us would like maybe to see your presentation and then maybe have a few questions. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank you.
All right.
Okay.
So let us begin with the Shapeways presentation. We'll first hear a presentation from Michael Weinberg, General Counsel of Shapeways, a global 3D printing company headquartered in New York City, which has built a major manufacturing facility in Long Island City, Queens, with the assistance of $200,000 in ESD Excelsior Job Program tax credits awarded in round one. Mr. Weinberg.
Well, thank you so much for having me, and I'm really excited to be here to talk about Shapeways and to be able to thank the Council for their support for our expansion here in New York. I'm going to explain a little bit about our facility in New York. I'm going to explain a little bit about Shapeways, but the first thing that you probably need to learn a little bit about to understand all of those things is 3D printing, because Shapeways is a 3D printing company, and 3D printing is core to what we do and what we are doing. 3D printing has been in the news a lot lately, and a lot of people have a little bit of exposure to it, but not necessarily a full understanding of what's going on. Fundamentally, when we're talking about 3D printing, we're talking about a technology that takes a digital file and turns it into a physical thing. And the way that it does that is often 3D printing is called additive manufacturing. And that's in contrast to traditional subtractive manufacturing. In traditional subtractive manufacturing, you'd take a block of something, of wood, of metal, or a plate of metal, and you'd cut away until you had what you needed. With additive manufacturing, what the 3D printing technology does is it takes the digital file of the object, and it cuts that object into thin layers. And then the machine lays down layer upon layer upon layer of whatever material you're printing in, so you result in an object. And so this is a little bit of an example. I'm sorry that the image is not fantastic. But what you think of it as, it lays down a layer in the material, it moves up a level, it lays down a slightly different shaped layer of material, and over time you get an object that is dynamically shaped, that is shaped differently throughout. This is a technology where we see all sorts of advantages. One of them is tooling. Traditionally, when you're manufacturing, your first object is going to be very expensive because you need to set up tooling and processes. With 3D printing, there's no tooling. You have a file, and you print the object. And so the first one costs the same as the 10th one or the 100th one. Also, we're able to create incredibly complex geographies inexpensively, which means that the geometry that we're dealing with can be incredibly ornate at no additional cost. And so what we often see is that combination of the complex geometries and the no startup costs means that we get people who are interested in prototyping or small runs, and also people who are interested in what's called mass customization, where every single object is customized to the person who needs it in a way that's simply impossible with more traditional manufacturing techniques. Often when we're talking about 3D printing, the desktop printers that you see on the news, we're talking about printers that are $500, maybe $3,000. Those printers print in a plastic that is like a Lego plastic. We have at our facility machines that are in the 5 and 6 digits. They're $100,000, $500,000 machines that print in a number of different materials 40 different materials. We print in ceramic, we print in metal, we print in full color, we print in incredibly high detail. And our role in this process is we interact with our customers basically in two ways. One way is that a designer designs an object or scans a real-life object, uploads it to us, and then decides what material they want it in. We print it and we send it to them. The other way is a designer will design an object and open a shop and put that file up for sale, and customers will come and choose the object, choose the material, and we'll print it on demand. We'll send the object to the customer. We'll send the markup to the designer. Everything is printed on demand. And so we have designers who really like this because in the past, when they were thinking about manufacturing things, they'd end up having to make an initial investment and hope that their initial run of 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 didn't just live in their garage or clutter their apartment. But now we're able to print on demand. So you can put up 20 files, and if one of them sells 5, we print 5. If one of them sells 500 or 5,000, we print 500 or 5,000. And so that's fundamentally our role in this process. Now, as you can imagine, people are very excited about this, and so we get a lot of designers who are coming in. Right now, we have about 16,000 shop owners. Those are individuals who have designed something, who are uploading it, who are making it for sale. 70% of those people are self-taught. They taught themselves how to be 3D modelers and 3D designers. And 50% of them are first-time business owners. So we have an incredible knock-on effect on entrepreneurship. And one of the reasons that so many of them are first-time business owners is because it's inexpensive to do it. We have 94% of our designers and our shop owners invested less than $1,000 in opening their shop. And 70% of them invested less than $100 in opening their shop. And so the barrier to entry for entrepreneurship is incredibly low. One of the reasons they like coming to Shapeways is because we have a really dynamic and international community. We have 400,000 community members, and those are designers. Those are people who love talking about design. Those are people who love buying 3D printed designs, want to know what's going on. These numbers are a little bit out of date, but we get about 120,000 designs uploaded every single month from all over the world, of all sorts of things, as you can imagine. And we print, as I said, in 40 different materials, and we ship to 119 different countries. So why did we come to New York? We were originally founded, as was said in the introduction, in the Netherlands. We were in a Philips Electronics incubator in 2008. In 2010, when we spun out of the incubator, we got some venture capital from venture capitalists located here in New York. They suggested that we should move to New York, and we listened to our venture capitalist backers, and we moved to New York and opened our headquarters in the Flatiron District here in Manhattan. And shortly thereafter, in 2012, with the assistance of the grants from the council, we cut the ribbon on a factory in Long Island City. And this is a factory that is one of our primary production facilities. When we opened it, it looked like this. It was an empty factory space, essentially. And now we have a facility that has row after row of 3D printers. Those are kind of person-sized 3D printers. We have finishing facilities. We have distribution facilities where we're going all the way from file intake to printing to finishing, and then finally to distribution and shipment to the customer. All these things are happening in Long Island City. Now, why are we in Long Island City? Why are we in New York? Why did we build this facility here? We are many kinds of companies. We're a software company, we're a web company, but we're also fundamentally a manufacturing company. And so being somewhere where we have a manufacturing facility that is close to headquarters and that there can be incredibly close coordination between the headquarters of the company and the manufacturing center of the company is critical to our growth. We are only as good as we are able to implement new and innovative applications to our facility. We're at the forefront of 3D printing, which is at the forefront of manufacturing, and so we need to be nimble. The factory is very close. It's about half an hour from our headquarters on Park Avenue over to the facility in Long Island City. And that means that there is constant interaction between the facility in Long Island City and our headquarters. People are back and forth all the time. Many people, including myself, Some days of the week we're in Long Island City, some days of the week we're on Park Avenue. And all of this means that we really understand as a company what is happening at the manufacturing level. And without that understanding, we simply couldn't be competitive. And in addition to being connected to our manufacturing center, which is critical, we also can tap into the larger tech community in New York City. And so it's not enough just to be close to the factory. The factory also has to be close to all the innovative tech entrepreneurship that is happening here in New York. And New York City is one of these places that gives us the unique capability of being both connected to that high-tech entrepreneurship and connected to our high-tech manufacturing. And those two things come together at our Long Island City facility. And so, again, thank you from Shapeways for allowing us to be able to do that with this support. I'm happy to answer questions now or if there are questions at the end.
At the end? You got another presentation?
Yes.
Right. I think now New York Wheel.
Yeah. So next up is Rich Marin, President and CEO of the New York Wheel. This is a 625-foot high wheel on the North Shore of Staten Island. That's like 60 stories, I think. It was designated as a priority project in round 3, and the $500 million project got $1.5 million in ESD Market New York grants. I think it's the biggest one of its kind in the world, isn't it, Rich?
It will be when it's built.
Yeah.
Coming up big.
All right. Well, I'll start without it. First of all, I'd like to thank the council and all the CIAT members for inviting me here to speak today. I'd also like to thank the council for its very generous $1.5 million grant to us under the Market New York program, which I will explain specifically how we're utilizing it, why it's been so important to us. I'd like to start, though, by thanking you for giving money to Shapeways, because, Michael, we're being built by a Dutch company, and I would love to see you just 3D print this thing. It would save me a lot of headaches. It may be a little bigger than your facility, but let me tell you, with the headaches I've got ahead of me building this thing, a 3D printing solution would be wonderful. And actually, I would like to use some of that $1.55 million to change our promotional information to make sure everybody knows that it's not a 625-foot wheel, but a 630-foot wheel, mostly because thanks to FEMA raising the flood zones, we're now a 630-foot wheel. Just a small joke, but important to us since we're calling our VIP center the 630 Club. We got to get that 625 thing out of the vocabulary. The New York Wheel is a tremendous boon to tourism in the New York City area and the New York region. I could tell you that we thought about putting this in New Jersey and that it's very fortunate that you helped sponsor this. But at $1.55 million of grant on a $500 million project, the truth of the matter is we never thought about putting it in New Jersey other than trying to make sure that EDC was helping us sponsor this properly, and they were right from the get-go. The city and the community in which this is built has always been very, very responsive to this, and I think the reason it's been responsive is that it played on two fundamental themes for New York City. The fundamental themes were that we had spent 12 years in this city building up our tourism business to 56 million tourists a year, and now the largest urban tourist destination in the world. And secondly, we had spent those 12 years also building up the waterfront as a tourism element. And 12 million tourists already go on boats in that harbor somewhere. And this finally took the tourism footprint to the logical extension of the harbor on Staten Island, and indeed allowed Staten Island, a very important challenged economic place on the North Shore of Staten Island, to participate in the tourism miracle of New York City, and brought it into that equation in a very positive way. So I didn't pick the location. The city of New York and EDC picked the location, but whoever picked it with hindsight was brilliant. And they were brilliant because it not only allowed us to be built in a place that really needs the jobs, and I'm going to use a piece of evidence to that effect, and I know the Regional Economic Development Council cares a lot about job creation, but let's just look at what the United States Immigration Service did in granting us our EB-5 financing permission. They made us a poster child for the EB-5 program and they gave us our permissioning in 7 months, which is almost half the time it takes usually to get approval. Why? Because we create, in their calculus, 4,200 jobs. So that's our primary jobs, 300-400 jobs in the construction period, another 400 to 600 jobs on a permanent basis and on a direct basis. But the ancillary jobs that come out because of this as the centerpiece of a whole North Shore Staten Island redevelopment is really astounding. I'm not suggesting that the other 3 projects that are being built on Staten Island wouldn't have been built. The core 4 projects, as the borough president, Jimmy Otto, calls them, some of them may have been built without us, but I think the fact that we are the centerpiece of and sort of the symbol of the redevelopment of the North Shore of Staten Island causes those to be projects that sort of grew and expanded to their full natural extent. And the best example of that is the Empire Outlets Mall, a very fortunate recipient of a goodly grant from the Regional Economic Development Council as well. So when it comes to why our $1.55 million was critical to us, this whole project, and in fact this whole $1.3 billion of redevelopment of the North Shore of Staten Island, the largest single private investment ever made on Staten Island in its history, and the largest investment of any kind made on Staten Island since the building of the Verrazano Bridge 50 years ago, comes about because of the ability to attract somewhere between 5 and 10 million tourists a year to that site. We're projecting 3.5 to 4, and the Empire Outlets Mall is projecting 6 to 7. And then, of course, Lighthouse Point will attract a certain number themselves. These are the 3 projects clustered around the ferry terminal. Those projects all require promoting the notion of coming to Staten Island. Now, the good news is that in promoting that notion, we, it's a nice picture anyway, I can just keep this up the whole time. In promoting that notion, thank you. In promoting that notion, we have the advantage, should I use this? Okay. We have the benefit of the Staten Island Ferry, a rather, let's say, catchy and iconic institution of its own that attracts right now, by our estimate, 3 to 3.5 million tourists a year. And that means that we had a very good start. However, we need twice as many or more than that, and therefore we're working with New York and Company, NYC and Company, to We're working with NYC and Company to promote this tourist destination, what is being called Destination St. George. This little map of the harbor shows you that being 5.2 nautical miles away from Manhattan was considered by many other potential builders of a wheel to be a distance too far to overcome. We fortunately felt differently because of the number of people that were already on the Staten Island Ferry. And we are now bringing in all 6 private water transit providers to bring ferry routes to a private ferry dock that we will be building in conjunction with the Outlet Mall right next to the existing ferry terminal. So we will be using those funds to promote across the city for tourists that are getting on and off tour buses that are doing all of these things that tourists do downtown and in Midtown, to go either to the west side or the east side if they don't want to go downtown and catch one of the private ferries that's going to bring them to our site, or go downtown and catch the Staten Island Ferry to our site. We're doing that in conjunction with NYC and Company, on whose board we enjoy a seat. And we are working very actively. Of the 3 projects that NYC and Company promotes worldwide in all of the tourism shows, they promote 3 things. They promote the 9/11 Museum and the One World Trade Center Observatory, both of which are built and open. They promote the Whitney, which is right now opening, and they promote us, and we're 2 years away. That's the importance that this has to New York City tourism, and the funds you have provided us will allow this to be successful. This was a very hard project to finance. Being put in a regional economic zone like this allowed the USCIS to grant us the right to do EB-5 financing. We gathered $170 million of EB-5 financing. And just to make the point, I'm paying 10.25% for my senior debt in a commercial arm's length basis, but my mezzanine debt from the EB-5 program cost me 2.75%. Why am I able to get $170 million, 2.75% money? Because of the job creation that this project promotes. And the economic zone, as you know, EB-5 focuses on where you're building, the economic zone being the highest priority Regional Economic Development Council Metro New York area zone on the North Shore of Staten Island. Those 2 reasons gave us the ability to do this project. And EB-5 money is for projects that couldn't otherwise be built. Your grants are for projects that might not otherwise be built. This project is all about helping an important economic zone like the North Shore of Staten Island finally see its potential and build upon the overall tourism business that New York City has so actively promoted. This will be a game changer for Staten Island. I believe it'll be a game changer for New York Harbor, and it'll be a game changer for New York tourism, as NYC and Company seems to believe. So I think that's most of what you need to know for your purposes. Obviously, there's lots of statistics. You know, I love the statistic that says that our hourly uplift capacity at 2,200 plus people is approximately the One World Trade Center plus the Empire State Building combined. That's how much capacity we have. So we have lots of ways that we can grow over time. We're going to do lots of things for the general population of tourists as well as the high-end population of tourists that want the champagne flights and such. We're also going to activate this site so that the North Shore of Staten Island becomes a major regional resident destination in addition to a tourist destination. We've got 22 million people in the SMA. I'd like to make use of them in London. The typical Londoner has been to the London Eye 4 times in the last 12 years. So as far as we're concerned, if we can make and activate this site so that people say, we've got to go back here when Aunt Bessie comes to town, I've done my job the right way. That's what it looks like. You notice we've completely eliminated New Jersey in this rendering, which is done on purpose for this council's benefit. But I might add that Pat McGeehan chose this picture for the New York Times article when we appeared on page 1 in the month of July in that wonderful article that he wrote. And I'm glad that he picked a picture that had just New York in it. This is what we will look like from our community entrance side, which is the Richmond Terrace side, because we do not have a front door and a back door. We have 2 front doors, one for the tourists, one for the community, and they're both equally nice. There's our front door down on Bank Street. And I guess all I'm going to tell you is this is going to be a very, very big wheel. Whether or not Dubai builds a bigger one or not is still up for grabs. I don't really care. I've said, in fact, at one of your regional meetings that all they will do is see more sand, where we will see more of New York and New York Harbor. We will finally give some of the respect that the Verrazano Bridge deserves. 50 years ago, we built the largest suspension span in the world. It's still the largest in the Western Hemisphere. And let me ask you this. When people say San Francisco, they say Golden Gate. When they say New York, maybe now they'll say Verrazano Bridge. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We've heard 2 excellent presentations already. I'd point out to Mr. Marin that the ferry ride to Dubai is much too long. We're now going to hear from Matt Gordon who is the Director of Operations for the Brooklyn Brewery. The Brooklyn Brewery, which has grown into a global brand, will construct a state-of-the-art brewery on the west shore of Staten Island with proximity to the New York, New Jersey ports. The project received $2 million, not $200 million, $2 million in ESD capital grants and $4 million in ESD Excelsior Job Program tax credits in round 4. Matt?
Thank you. Fortunately for me, beer's a little bit easier to understand than 3D printing or a 630-foot wheel. I'm Matt Gordon, Director of Operations at the Brooklyn Brewery and the project manager for our new brewery project. Brooklyn Brewery is the 11th largest craft brewery in the country, but really what makes us unique is that we're the leading exporter of craft beer in the U.S. We only sell to 25 states and 20 countries, but 40% of our beer is currently shipped outside the country. And about a year and a half ago, we realized with our growth trajectory as a company overall, and especially as our export business, that we needed to build a new large-scale manufacturing facility to support our growth. We wanted to optimize it for our logistics, so proximity to the ports, access to rail, and needing about 25 acres for our overall campus, and ideally being in New York State. When we applied for the CFA last year, we were looking, as mentioned, at a number of sites in the city and the Hudson Valley region, as well as other states as well. And what we realized was that the opportunity to try and stay in New York State and as well as New York City was going to be a more costly venture than moving to other states, which have both cheaper land costs and higher construction costs, but it also provided us the opportunity to stay in the state where we've been for 28 years and at the same time potentially even create more jobs than we would in another state by having the branding effect of being in the city and the state. And so over the last year, we really narrowed down on one location in particular, which is the west shore of Staten Island. And we've been negotiating with the land sellers and have made significant progress. We're close to signing a deal on the land with a memo of understanding that was signed last month. We've initiated the required environmental reviews, and the site is currently being raised 14 feet up from the current elevation levels for the same FEMA regulations. So significant progress is already underway. We've, at the same time, have hired our brewing engineers who've completed the facility design and layout. We've hired an owner's rep to really help us be our advisors and project managers because this is a once-in-a-lifetime project for us. And we've also been making great progress with securing the financing, which really was led by getting the award from the CFA last year. It's great to be able to walk into meetings and be able to share the awards that we received, the support that we got from both the state and the city, and it really is a catalyst for being able to put this whole project together. Our initial plan when we presented it a year ago was to build a basic manufacturing facility. So put up a basic building. We estimated the cost at the time to be about $70 million and expected to create 92 jobs at this new facility. But over the course of the past year, what we realized is that we had a unique opportunity with this project, partly learning more about the excitement that was happening on the North Shore of Staten Island, partly realizing that and looking back on our history in Brooklyn, when we opened up in Williamsburg in '96, we couldn't pay people to come and visit us. And at first, when we thought about this new production facility, we didn't think people would come and visit us. There's a lot of activity elsewhere in the city, a lot of activity on the North Shore. But we realized that this is a unique opportunity that we have to create a destination where we could bring people into the heart of Staten Island and create a new, exciting place for people to visit. And so we've expanded our scope of the project to be able to design a facility that really is a new retail destination on Staten Island and in the city and the state. And at the same time, design a facility that will allow us to grow and adapt as a company for many years to come. Not put up a basic structure, but really think about a new vision for urban manufacturing that we don't know what our business will look like in 10 or 15 years, but we can think about how to design a facility that will allow us to stay and grow in this location. And so with our new vision, we're expecting this project to be at least $120 million. 115 jobs related to the manufacturing side of the project, but at the same time with the retail expansion, over 100 retail jobs as well. And what we've really decided with this project is that we want to create a new vision in urban manufacturing. So as I mentioned, an expandable, flexible facility that allows us to grow and tackle strategic initiatives as they come up, focus on sustainability investments, so a microgrid concept where we do a lot of on-site generation through fuel cells and cogen, renewable energy like solar or wind, and really thinking about how we could make the best investments for having a long-term home in this location. And at the same time, create a new destination. So a restaurant and beer garden, a visitor center tour experience. And this site is actually pretty unique because it's surrounded by wetlands. And we're really thinking about how we can integrate the facility design with the surrounding nature and wetlands and create a whole outdoor experience and make it a unique place in the city. So as you can see, we are on the western shore just south of the Goethals Bridge is the target location. The site was a former oil storage facility, so we're excited about taking a piece of property that was once contaminated and putting it into good new use. The campus is going to be a broader campus of which we're one of many buildings. So our building would be on the far north, surrounded by the wetlands. As you can see, there's going to be a rail spur designed to come into the facility, which will allow us to both bring in our raw materials as well as ship out finished goods. And this is our current layout of the facility, so really focusing on the production end on the right side. That's where it's brewed, fermentation, packaging, and connecting it into a warehouse. And these are some very early renderings of the project. I don't think it'll look exactly like this, but it gives you an idea of the scale of what we're going for. And one of the ideas is to really open it up to our visitors, allow them to see the facility, see the process, integrate the retail components, such as the restaurant, which is where this view is from, into the brewing process and understanding it, and really allow people to see where their beer is being made. We also eliminated New Jersey and replaced it with the Alps. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So, those are three presentations from three projects of which we are very, very proud to have supported. We thank SIAT for its past support, and we look forward to these projects coming to fruition and creating more jobs for more New Yorkers. In a moment, our host here at the New York Genome Center, Dr. Robert Darnell, President, and Mac Pilo, Vice President for Financial Strategy and Operations, will lead SIAT and members of the Regional Council on a tour of this facility. However, before we close the presentation, I'd like to invite Dr. Darnell, if he is here. All right.
We will have some questions.
Okay.
Want us to wait for Dr. Darnell?
Okay. Yeah, he can make just a few remarks.
While he's creating, I have a quick question before I turn it over to my colleagues. Yeah. I just want to make sure, on behalf of the Deputy Borough President of Brooklyn, that we're not going to change the name of the beer to Staten Island Beer. Steve?
No, it's still Brooklyn Brewery, and actually the fill that Matt referred to, the 14-foot increase in the elevation, much of that fill comes from Brooklyn.
Oh, all right. Okay. I feel much, as a Park Sloper, I feel much better now.
If I could, I would note that when I moved to New York around the time the brewery opened, I used to tell people that I lived in Manhattan, but now I tell people I live in Greater Brooklyn.
So, Mr. Secretary, we're going to ask our host, Dr. Darnell, to make a few words, and then, of course, all the questions you can muster. Dr. Darnell, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. It is a real pleasure to be able to speak to this group. We've enjoyed interacting and working with you, and hope to do so going into the future here. So I just want to give a brief overview on where you are and why we built this place. the New York Genome Center has emerged in the last 2 years since we opened as one of the premier genome centers in the world. We just competed on a national grant. About 40 genome centers, the best of in the United States, competed on this grant. We were internationally reviewed, and we came in number 2 in the country. So we have something to shoot for, but we're doing pretty well. And the reason for that is one of the things that impressed the reviewers on this NIH grant was we are building something completely different in a number of ways. First of all, the Genome Center is a different model. It's not a bunch of academic geeks, although we have plenty of those here, sitting around trying to get the next paper and the next interesting scientific discovery. We actually embrace that. That's necessary, but that is not sufficient to drive a change in healthcare and all the ramifications that come with change in healthcare. So specifically, we are an aggregate, as you know, of every major academic center and every hospital in the city. They sit on the board of the New York Genome Center. They are active participants. We currently have about 150 different projects going with the different participants in New York. Those projects are increasingly leading to both discovery that we're interested in, but driving that down to clinically actionable change. So the main mantra of the Genome Center is not to make another academic center per se, but to harness the academics and the technology power here. And you'll see, if you come on the tour, the machines that are doing this, to bring it down to the level of an individual patient. So this is sort of the miracle of the day right now, is that the technology in your iPhone or your iWatch or computer has now really been brought to bear in biology. So it's just an absolutely transformative time. I'll give you 2 quick examples. A young girl came to clinic a few months ago at Columbia, had been doing fine, about age 2 or 3, developed weakness, trouble walking, a little imbalance. No doctor could figure out what was wrong with her. It looked like maybe this was a genetic disease. So her mom, and her dad got sequenced. We can do that in 1 day now. 3 billion base pairs of the little girl, 3 billion base pairs of the mom, 3 billion base pairs of the dad. We line them up with computers, and we look for literally the needle in the haystack that's different in the little girl and not in the mom or dad. In this case, we found it. And these things take about 6 days now, sometimes less, sometimes more, start to finish. And in this case, it was a variant in one of her genes that's important for vitamin B6, riboflavin metabolism. So she wasn't getting enough, and it was leading to neurologic brain problems. So they gave her vitamin B6. Next time she came back to clinic, she was doing much better. Her head weakness was better. Second time she came back to clinic, she's high-fiving all the doctors. So it really just a remarkable story. The same sort of thing is going on in cancer now, where patients who are absolutely failed conventional therapy, and this touches all of us, right, from pediatrics to aged my parents. Cancer now is, cancer is a disease where there's mutations in the DNA. So the answer key lies in these 3 billion base pairs where mutations are happening. Whether it's from smoking or bad luck or your bad genes, the answer key is from sequencing that DNA. And what we're finding now is, the old days, meaning 2 years ago, in cancer, we give chemotherapy. I know, I'm a physician, so at Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center, we have patients with brain tumors. We give them chemotherapy, blast everything and try and kill it, right? If you look at the cancer and sequence it here at the Genome Center, you can find in an increasing number of patients, they have a mutation in a gene that's causing a pathway to be overdriven that we have a drug for. You wouldn't have known necessarily to pull that drug out. A nice case is 2 boys with leukemia last year who'd lost all their hair, standard chemotherapy. Most of the time they do extremely well, and these 2 boys relapsed. Terrible prognosis, just a crisis for the family and the caregivers. And they sequenced these kids, and they had mutations that had only been seen in melanoma. So they said, well, there's a drug for melanoma, verafenib. Let's give it to these kids. The tumor went away. Just basically as simple as that. The answer is here. What we're missing for the city and where the development comes in here is that these are one-off cases for wonderful doctors at these institutions seeing single patients. What we're missing is the ability to scale. And so the Genome Center is built to be, clinical grade, scaled sequencing for the entire community. That's our ambition here. I'm really on fire about this. If you can't tell, I'm totally psyched. So I thank you for your interest, and I'd be delighted to take you guys on a tour.
Thank you, Dr. Darnell. That ends our presentation.
All right, Dr. Darnell, we're going to have a few questions of the panel, and then we look forward to the tour.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think I had my question of the change of the Brooklyn Brewery's name, so I will turn it over to Commissioner DiStito.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I'm really excited, and it's a privilege to be back here in New York City. And I'm proud to say that I was here when you talked about some of these projects were just beginning. So it's great to be here with such success and everything moving forward, whether it's the Wheel, the Brooklyn Brewery. Steve, it's great to see you again. And it'll always be the Brooklyn Brewery, right?
Our headquarters will be in Brooklyn, and
Great.
we have a big brewery in Brooklyn as well.
Great. Okay. And I hail from Mac country, so
I know.
yes. So we're very, very pleased to see that expansion here in New York State. My question to the panel is: do you see with this investment, the governor made this historic change in economic development funding for the state of New York? It's the bottom up. It's taking projects and asking the regions to decide. Are you seeing more entrepreneurial spirit? Are you seeing people coming to the Regional Economic Development Council that you probably, each and every one of you probably would not have touched, or the region would not have touched in the past? We're just looking for, your reaction to that.
Well, I'll answer and first, and my colleagues can certainly chime in. Yes, we are. We hold forums. Most recently, we have held a forum on May 20th. But at each of these forums, these informational forums, people turn out, and you see projects that span from the New York Wheel to smaller entrepreneurial projects and entrepreneurs who may be seeking workspace just to launch their companies. The governor's approach, which he said he based on the empowerment zone from his experience at HUD, he said that when he launched this whole CFA initiative, something I know a little bit about, engenders grassroots participation. And we find that going from borough to borough and having these forums and allowing people first to hear about the process, which up until now I think had been shrouded in mystery, and I think most people thought that you had to know somebody in order to know somebody, to know a lobbyist in order to be able to garner state funds. Well, this has taken the mystery away, and we're bringing the process right to the people. And I think we are getting commensurate responses.
Great. Stuart?
I think Ken has covered it very well. I would just emphasize that it's not just the funding that is made available by the state, but it is the process, as Ken has said, that was created by the state. It's the process that has encouraged people to be involved. There is also interaction between the council and those people who come to us with projects. So the project at the end of the day may actually be different than what was presented to us to begin with. And when you look at who is involved in this, whether it's academia or labor or business or government, that you're able to bring a lot of perspectives to a project that results in the sorts of things that we've been very proud in. And I think that it's the process that is being used is really a model for economic development for the entire country.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and I think the process happened or became available at a perfect moment in the nation. When I started the brewery 28 years ago, there were only a handful of business schools that had entrepreneurship programs, Columbia being one of them. And today, virtually every business school in the country has an entrepreneurship program. And actually, there are a lot of undergraduate entrepreneurship programs. I think, actually, the financial crisis of 2008, far from discouraging a whole generation of young people, I think it encouraged them to think for themselves and look at ways that they could start companies and pursue dreams. And the Economic Development Program in New York State came at a very opportune moment, I think.
I just would like to add that I've seen a lot of grassroots encouragement and development in terms of, people, business people that have thoughts and dreams. There's been more partnerships. They're reaching out to the academia partners to see where the opportunities are. I think in terms of when we identify the criteria, it's making some of the business people look at some of their business plans and rethink how can they move forward at a more accelerated pace by engaging with some other partners that maybe necessarily they wouldn't have unless they looked at where the focus and the priorities were.
Thank you, and just let me thank you for doing all the work that you do.
Commissioner Boone.
Thank you. I want to thank you all for the great presentations today. Some exciting projects. My question relates really to your project pipeline. You have a lot of good projects that seem in the pipeline that are able to have significant collateral impacts, whether, it's the Brooklyn Navy Yard, the Brooklyn Army Terminal, your projects today. I'd just like to hear a little bit more update on that from a macro perspective, your project pipeline and how those other projects are coming along. Just big picture.
How many did we review for 2015?
We reviewed, I believe, for 2015 to 2014. It was over 400 projects that we
something. There are no shortage of initiatives for the future here in the New York City region, which I would remind you is about half the population of the state. And I don't think the pipeline is an issue. We got plenty for you.
Yeah, just over the past 3 rounds, we have funded a total of 160 projects, $175 million in awards. We expect when the period for filing ended on July 31st at 4 p.m. And I have the lofty position of chairing the scoring committee. I keep getting reelected for some reason to do that. So we probably will be looking at another 400 to 500 projects that we'll have to distribute over several of our members. So, Mr. Boone, we think the pipeline is robust. You're also going to see some of the projects that have been awarded this afternoon as we take a tour. Yeah, let me add, I see it as a strength. So I was just looking, to see if obviously you see it the same way, but especially your larger projects in concert with the smaller projects, but create a host, if you will, incubator for many other projects within them. And that's one of the things I've been impressed with the projects that you put forth. Mm-hmm.
Director Tobey for the last question before our tour.
Okay, thank you. So you'll be all happy to know that I was born in Brooklyn, but now live in Buffalo, and went there because it was the furthest I could go without losing my Regent Scholarship from Mom. But I think we all lived a part of our lives thinking about that. Upstate and downstate are so different, but in some ways so similar. That certainly scale is vastly different downstate, but many of the issues are similar. And I want to ask a question about workforce, which may be to the panel, but may also be to ShapeWorks. What we're finding throughout upstate now with the reviving manufacturing economy, and communities that once were largely manufacturing declined and now are reviving, is a very significant problem with finding skilled workers to take the place of those who are about to retire. In our community, there's 55,000 people in manufacturing jobs, and 17,000 of them can retire by 2020. 17,000 vacancies to fill just to maintain the manufacturing economy we now have. And it's growing if we can find workers. And particularly in urban areas, it seems, manufacturing was a sort of declining focus, I guess, of educational systems. Vocational training was squeezed out of curriculums, and it became harder and harder to have the next generation come through and be prepared to do manufacturing. And the old sources of some skilled workers, the U.S. Navy, for instance, has declined dramatically. We're not receiving the number of returning vets with those types of skills. What's happening here with that, and how are you responding to it? You've got lots of jobs to fill in manufacturing. Where are your workers coming from, and is there a need for further emphasis on workforce development for CNC printers and all of that? So I'm not sure who's best to answer it, but and I know we're going to be going to a place later today, but I thought with the people from the companies here, you may want to answer or help us understand what's happening.
Yeah.
Just to touch upon it in round 2 with our CUNY 2020 grants, there's been a large effort throughout New York City to look and work with high schools and colleges and companies throughout the city where internships, mentorships, curriculum are being co-developed to focus on the areas where the workforce needs to be developed, where they can fill those gaps, particularly in areas like STEM. And it's not all, it's skilled workers, it's unemployed people that could be developed through a lot of the educational programs that are being established. And I think you'll see that this afternoon with Perscalis. It's a wonderful program that is taking unemployment and really training the next generation of workers. Manufacturing jobs throughout the city and I think throughout the nation are taking on a different vibe, and we see that very much with Shapeways in terms of it's manufacturing, but it's a different type of manufacturing. It's now the 3D, it's now the tech being integrated in, and it's starting to, the education is going into the schools because companies are seeing that throughout the city that they need the workforce development in the high schools and in the colleges to reflect what the future needs are.
And the New York City school systems can adapt? That can be done through...
Yes, there are many schools that are partnering just with companies and are focusing. There's an energy tech high school in Long Island City. I'm very familiar with it because Con Edison, whom I work for, has been developing a curriculum where high school students will graduate with an associate's degree, and it can funnel into our programs and to other utilities. And that type of very focused. There's a film and industry high school focusing on, that industry throughout New York City, which has grown so much in terms of the film industry, and it's focusing on that curriculum. So we're seeing that with the partnerships throughout the city and the local education.
Mm-hmm. I would just add simply that Kathy Weil, who is not here today, but as you know, heads up New York City's partnership. She's the chair of that particular subcommittee on the council, and she's worked very, very closely with the city's Center for Youth Engagement and DOE's workforce centers to foster internship opportunities for kids. And I think we're currently considering 5 projects that have applied for CFA, that we will look to see if it aligns with our workforce criteria. But it's a very, very important part of our agenda.
Yeah. Could we ask Mr. Weinberg to give his perspective, if you don't mind? Do you mind that?
No.
No, please.
Yeah, I think it's a great question, and it's something that we're working through right now. We're around the corner from LaGuardia Community College, and we've worked closely with them. We found them to be very responsive. One of our challenges is internally identifying what skill set we need from people coming in. We're very much evolving our processes as we go, and so figuring out what is the kind of skill set, what is the kind of person that we want coming in the door, and how much training can we give them as they come through to really get them up to speed, is something that we honestly don't have a fully defined answer to. And I think that's going to be something you're going to see a lot around digital manufacturing right now, whereas when we think about traditional manufacturing, a lot of those skills had been standardized. We're not there yet for where we are, and so we are looking for partners who can be as flexible with us as we are internally figuring out exactly what that means. So far, we've had fairly good success finding candidates, and as we move through the process where we mature into a situation where we have a more formal evaluation criteria, we're looking for ways to partner with everyone in the community and all the educational institutions. So once we can communicate to them what they need, they can communicate back to us who they can provide.
Yeah. Can you afford to train workers in the plant or in the facility?
You know, it depends on what you define by training. In a lot of ways, we know that on some level we'll have to be training people because they just will not be familiar with these specific machines. But that's sort of what I mean by figuring out what the incoming skill set is. There's a last mile that we're happy to train.
Right.
The question is, how much knowledge do they need to have coming into it in a way that is sustainable for us?
Yeah. What we're finding in a lot of upstate is somebody will do the training and then the workers get poached.
Yeah, well, and then that's a concern for us, but that's a challenge to make our factory an attractive place to work.
Yeah. Okay.
And so, fortunately, it's figuring out who would poach our workers. We're working on that too.
Good luck. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I would also note that when you talk about the difference in scale between different parts of the state and New York City, scale also means that we have a lot of unemployed people here, even as the unemployment rate goes down. There are a lot of unemployed people here. And that when we look at the projects we fund, what is important for us, too, is not just the creation of jobs, but the creation of quality jobs, good jobs. And I think it's the nature of the jobs that also results in people with the skills coming forward. So we're not just looking to create jobs and finding people to fill them, but we're looking for jobs that enable people to survive and prosper in the city.
The governor's very obviously intent on doing that. I'm more involved in upstate, but one of the things we're talking about is not just job creation, but seeing that the average wages and the average wealth of the regions go up, and also that for most people, their wages are going to be going up over time and they can support themselves and their families. So we're not looking just to create minimum wage jobs, whatever that amount will be.
I think that's the right note to close, that we're looking for good jobs, good paying jobs, and you guys, as has been said before, have done a fantastic job, and we very much appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I do just one more thing before we close from this meeting? It's we also have someone sitting at this table,
Joe?
who's been instrumental.
We don't talk to Joe. We don't.
Joe.
Joe Tazwell. Who are you, Joe? Tell the folks here.
Joe Tazwell. I work at Empire State Development. I head the New York City regional office.
Great.